My name is Charlotte Brown. I'm 33, and I have spent most of my life being the adult everyone else relied on. Thanksgiving was supposed to be warm, full of laughter and gravy-slicked turkey, but it started like it always did, quietly, with the tension of unspoken debts waiting to be collected. The kitchen buzzed with heat and chatter. Steam curled from the oven like a warning, the smell of roasted turkey and truffle butter hanging in the air. Jenna, my younger sister, moved through the cabinets like she owned them, opening jars with a self-satisfied smile. My nephew, Tyler, 17, with a pencil mustache and an oversized hoodie, slouched at the table scrolling on his phone, earbuds in, living in a world of social media bravado. Uncle Mark, I paused at the thought, corrected myself internally. Aunt Charlotte, he still hasn't quite reconciled. Tyler tapped his fork on the plate with precision, like a gavel. You owe me $1,000 for being your aunt. The room froze. Even the oven seemed to hold its breath. I smiled reflexively, bad habit of politeness. For what? I asked. Existing, he shrugged, spinning his phone to show a neon-captioned video. If they ain't investing in you, they ain't family. Fire emojis. Tyler believed it, and in a way, his mother, Jenna, agreed. He's not wrong, she shouted from the stove, stirring gravy like punishment. I had learned long ago that love in my family came with invisible receipts. 2 years ago, I co-signed a $9,400 car loan for Tyler. I thought it was helping, a gift wrapped in trust. I bought into the promise of responsibility and maturity, not realizing that in my family, trust was leverage. I silently passed the rolls, the gravy, the turkey slices. My spreadsheet of everyone's preferences, every transaction, every repayment, lay in a folder on my laptop back at my apartment. Even the knife I used to carve the turkey was a reminder. I always made sure everyone else's needs were met before my own. Aunt Charlotte, Tyler said, leaning forward. I need that grand this week. Car stuff, gas, tires, stuff you wouldn't understand. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the old reflex of stretching myself thin, of solving everyone else's emergencies. I said nothing. My mother, hovering by the counter, murmured softly, "You're the helper. Don't leave us." I ate quietly, tasting the dry turkey and sweet cranberry, mentally counting the $9,400 and every missed payment. It was never just money. It was the principle. The expectation that I would absorb everything, time, energy, cash, without complaint. Later, at home, the smell of lemon-scented soap and the quiet hum of my fridge comforted me. I opened my laptop and clicked a folder titled Jenna S. Screenshots, emails, the original loan agreement, all meticulously saved. My finger hovered over the keyboard as I drafted a polite, clipped email to the lender. Please confirm the process to remove a cosigner when the primary borrower repeatedly fails to meet terms. Tyler sent a text mid-draft. Drop the 1K, Aunt Charlotte. No face, just the cash tag. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I thought back to when I was 10. Dad left with a toolbox, a recliner, and a story about how men disappear when bills arrive. Mom learned to stretch dollars. Jenna learned to charm the room and ask twice. I learned to fix things. Leaky sinks, frozen screens, children's homework panics. By 26, I had a stable hospital job. Not glamorous, but predictable. I bought a used Corolla with cash. I rented a small, clean apartment. I slept. That's when my family began to see my stability as a resource. Requests started small. Can you spot me $40 until Friday? Field trip fee? Tyler needs cleats. Then they became emergencies. Shut off the lights, cancel appointments, fix everything. And I always did. 2 years ago, Jenna decided Tyler needed a car. She had a part-time salon job, bad credit, and endless optimism. The salesman smiled, introduced the cosigner requirement. Mom squeezed my elbow, just enough to signal duty. Tyler stood outside the dealership, filming the car like it was a trophy. He didn't see me as a protector. I was part of the backdrop, the enabler, the adult who wouldn't vanish. Payments were initially on time, then late, then floating requests, excuses. I tracked everything in a family help spreadsheet. $20 here, $60 there, $400 once. Gratitude lasted a day. The debt lasted 30. I tolerated, reasoned, and covered until the pattern became undeniable. And now, Thanksgiving. Tyler's demand echoes. Jenna's laughter pierces the kitchen heat. I'm tired. So tired. But something inside me has shifted. I don't want to be the endless fund, the invisible shoulder, the accountant of everyone else's chaos. That night, I drafted the email I had been delaying. Clipped, professional, precise. I revoke being a co-signer on this loan effective immediately. My finger hovered. I pressed send. For the first time in years, I slept without carrying the weight of their expectations. Morning would come, and with it, confrontation. But for the first time, I felt ready. I wasn't just an aunt, I was Charlotte Brown, and my life, my name, belonged to me. The apartment was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I sat at my kitchen table, a mug of coffee cooling in my hands, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop. The words in my email hovered like a tightrope above a canyon. I revoke being a co-signer. 2 years of silent sacrifice, of paying bills that weren't mine, of absorbing family emergencies like a sponge, had led me here. I thought about the mornings when I'd wake before dawn, brewing coffee while Jenna slept in. Tyler's video games blinking on in the background. Every request had been reasonable at first. A field trip fee, a last-minute ride, a library fine. But reasonable became routine. Routine became expectation. Expectation became obligation without end. I realized I had been raising my family's chaos on my own shoulders. 2 years ago, the dealership was bright and sterile, Tyler beaming as he ran his fingers over the midnight blue sedan. Jenna was buzzing with excitement, Mom with her subtle nudge, and I was the adult who always said yes. The salesman asked for a cosigner. I signed. The pen felt light, the promise heavy. The first few months were fine. Tyler did his homework, helped wash the car, kept the tires inflated. But then came the social media videos, the donuts in the parking lot, the neon captions. He was a content creator in his own right, but he didn't see the consequences of his actions. Payments were late. He shrugged. Jenna laughed. Mom whispered guilt into me, and I paid, covered, fixed, until the debt was no longer financial. It was emotional. I sipped the bitter coffee and imagined the consequences of sending the email. Tyler would be furious. Jenna would erupt. Mom would tremble between outrage and guilt. But for the first time, I also imagined peace. Peace that didn't depend on other people's mismanagement. A life where my worth wasn't measured by my bank account or the favors I granted. I thought about Evan, my boyfriend, patient and quiet, always standing at the edge of family chaos like an anchor. He never asked me to be their savior. He didn't lecture me or judge. He simply loved me, and perhaps he was the reason I finally saw myself as someone worth protecting. I clicked through this folder titled Family Help. Receipts, emails, screenshots, spreadsheets. Evidence of every dollar, every missed payment, every favor stretched too far. My meticulous record-keeping had always been a shield, but I had used it for years, as armor no one could see. The irony was bitter. I had documented everything to stay sane, and now it would be the instrument of my liberation. The night dragged on. I drafted, deleted, reworded. I imagined Jenna barging in, hair crooked, voice sharp. You can't do this, Charlotte. Tyler needs you. I imagined Tyler's phone buzzing with entitlement. Drop the cash, Aunt Charlotte. I imagined Mom's soft pleading. Family doesn't abandon each other. And I realized abandoning them wasn't the issue. They had abandoned respect for me a long time ago. I drafted the email again, this time with deliberate precision, corporate tone, polite, impeccable grammar. I outlined all missed payments, late fees, lender warnings. I included the exact dates I had covered for them. No emotion, no guilt, just facts. When I hit send, a weight lifted. The apartment felt lighter, as if the air itself had recognized the end of a long, silent oppression. I leaned back in my chair, breathing deeply. The sound of the refrigerator humming, the faint smell of leftover turkey from Thanksgiving, it all felt normal. But I knew it wouldn't stay quiet for long. Tyler would notice immediately. Jenna would explode. Mom would question her loyalty. The consequences were inevitable, and I welcomed them. I had spent too many years avoiding conflict, smoothing edges, keeping peace at the expense of my own life. This was different. I wasn't just saying no, I was reclaiming my agency. I remembered the nights I spent helping Tyler with homework, walking circles around the apartment when he cried at 2 a.m., whispering nonsense to calm him, promising him safety and guidance. I had never walked away from my promises, but promises didn't mean accepting exploitation. They didn't mean sacrificing my entire existence for someone else's recklessness. By 3 a.m., the first pangs of relief arrived. I realized that boundaries could feel like both armor and liberation. I could love my family without being their bank, their chauffeur, their problem solver. For the first time, I saw a version of myself unbound by obligation, uncorrupted by guilt. I closed my laptop, leaving the email unsent for a few hours, partly to savor the feeling, partly to steel myself for the confrontation ahead. Morning would come, and with it, Tyler and Jenna, probably with Mom hovering. There would be questions, accusations, perhaps tears, but I knew one thing: I would not shrink anymore. As the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, I made a promise to myself. I would reclaim my name, my money, my life. I would teach Tyler responsibility. I would teach Jenna boundaries, and I would finally, fully exist for me. Not just as a caretaker, not just as a stopgap for their chaos, but as Charlotte Brown, a woman with limits, a woman with power, a woman who could say enough and mean it. The knock came early, sharp, impossible to ignore. I had been sitting at my kitchen table, sipping strong black coffee, staring out at the street where the first winter frost had begun to form. My heart thudded, not with fear, but with anticipation. They were coming. Tyler, Jenna, and, in her cautious way, Mom. I opened the door. Jenna pushed in first, hair crooked, her pajama pants tucked into boots, eyes red as if she'd slept none. Tyler was behind her, hoodie up, phone in hand, like he was recording some viral moment. Mom clutched a grocery bag like a shield. "What did you do?" Jenna demanded immediately, voice sharp, accusing. "I removed myself from the co-signer status," I said calmly. My voice was soft but precise, each word deliberate. The weight of years of unpaid debts, of silent sacrifices, was in the room. The air felt dense, charged. Jenna's hand shot out toward me. "You can't! We were going to pay today. Everything's fine." "Not fine," I interrupted gently. 3 missed payments in the spring, 2 in summer, 1 last month. I covered them all. Screenshots, receipts, emails, all in a folder if you want proof. I'm done funding irresponsibility. Tyler's phone lowered slightly. He blinked, confused, as if seeing me for the first time. I thought you'd always help." "That's the problem," I said, voice rising just enough to be heard without anger. "I always helped, and it became a license to take without responsibility. That ends today." Mom whispered, voice trembling. "This is betrayal." "No," I said, "this is correction. I'm not your bank. I'm not your unlimited safety net. I'm Charlotte. I'm a person, not a plan." Tyler's arms crossed, eyes flat. "So, what now?" "Now?" I smiled, a little sadly. "Now, you start being accountable, 1 bill at a time, phone every month, pull your credit report, save, work, repeat. I'll teach you how to fix this properly, but I won't do it for you." Jenna laughed bitterly. "You Googled boundaries, huh?" "I looked at my life," I said, tone steady, "and I realized I've been worse to myself than anyone else. I can't keep sacrificing my life to uphold your irresponsibility. Boundaries are not cruelty, they're survival." Silence swelled. The only sound was the faint hum of the heater and the distant rumble of traffic. The tow truck that would have come later, the one that could have symbolized failure and punishment, didn't arrive. The confrontation didn't need spectacle. The confrontation was real. It was here, in the room, in the air, in the words I refused to retract. Jenna finally spoke, quieter now. "You did this to us?" "I stopped hiding it," I said softly. "I stopped pretending my labor and love have no value. That's all. You've been taught to measure me in dollars. I won't allow that anymore." Tyler tilted his head, still skeptical. "So, credit report thing? You'll show me?" "Yes. When you want to learn, I'll teach. But I won't fund, I won't cover. That ends now." Jenna's eyes flickered with something like fear, or maybe grudging respect. She picked up the loan notice, weightless now. "You'll regret this." "I'll regret teaching you that you could spend me forever. That's the only regret," I said. Mom sighed. Family without boundaries is just chaos, I replied, and I refused to participate in that chaos at my expense. For the first time, Tyler looked at me, not as an aunt to exploit, but as a person. His sneer vanished, replaced by something uncertain, curiosity, maybe respect. Okay, I'll try, he muttered. Jenna's coat swished as she moved toward the door. We're done for today, I said firmly. The door closed behind them, muffling their murmurs into the hallway. I sat down, exhaling. My phone buzzed. Confirmation from the lender. Cosigner removal effective. The weight on my shoulders lifted a little more. For the first time, I felt my name was truly mine again. Alone, I cleaned the apartment with a sense of ritual. Vacuum lines crisp, dishes washed, papers organized. I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. Boundaries weren't just words. They were proof of self-respect. By evening, I felt the quiet that comes not from absence, but from reclaiming power. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't punished. I had simply said, enough, and that was enough. The days after the confrontation were quiet, but charged. Tyler didn't storm the apartment or demand payment. Instead, he showed up with a notebook, a pencil, and that hesitant look of someone stepping into a new world he didn't fully understand. I want to learn, he said, voice small. I nodded. Good, that's the first step. We sat at the kitchen table. I brewed tea, hot mugs to steady our hands, our nerves, our past. I laid out a simple plan. Track expenses, understand credit, set priorities. No lectures, no judgment, just clarity. I explained credit utilization, pay history, auto pay, why minimum payments trap you, why impulse purchases feel like victory but often aren't. He scribbled furiously, asked questions, sometimes stumbled over words. I corrected him gently. When he nodded, small victories stacked like bricks in a foundation. Meanwhile, Jenna tried to infiltrate my routine. Her texts were sharp, passive-aggressive, full of guilt and reminders. Tyler still needs help. Mom's worried about Christmas. I ignored the triggers, kept my focus on Tyler, on teaching him that accountability was the real power. One afternoon, Tyler came in with a bus pass photo. Paid my first $45, he said, almost proud to show me. I smiled, internal warmth blooming. Progress doesn't always roar. It often tiptoes, small and steady. See, I said, consistency wins. Not panic, not entitlement. You'll stack these little wins, and someday, you'll look back and wonder why it ever seemed impossible. Jenna texted 3 times while we worked. Each message was a dagger wrapped in concern, but I didn't respond. Boundaries aren't fragile. They are shields. Eventually, even she seemed to realize she couldn't manipulate me into bending. Mom tried softer approaches. Calls in the morning. Are you coming to dinner? I responded calmly. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Each response deliberate, intentional. I wasn't avoiding my family. I was teaching them, and myself, that presence without sacrifice is valuable. Slowly, Tyler's confidence grew. He texted screenshots of bills paid on time, deposits made, his schedule organized. Small victories built momentum. He even smiled more, lighter, not the brash teenager seeking validation from chaos and social media. He was learning that respect for himself and others wasn't just theory, it was habit. By mid-December, Jenna showed up at my door, a little hesitantly, unarmed, no theatrics. Do you hate me? She asked, voice almost inaudible. No, I said. I love you enough to stop being used. That's why I stopped. Her eyes glistened. For a moment, she looked like the sister I had once hoped she'd always be. She didn't apologize. She didn't demand forgiveness. She simply listened as I outlined boundaries, consequences, and expectations. Slowly, she began to see the structure wasn't punishment. It was fairness, accountability, respect. Together, Tyler and I worked through the steps: bus passes, deposits, credit management, phone bills, basic budgeting. And I watched him transform, not instantly, but genuinely. He learned that adulting wasn't a performance for likes or attention. It was responsibility, steady and unsentimental. Christmas approached. I didn't feel anxious this year. I felt grounded. Tyler had made his first independent payments, Jenna had begun to respect the boundaries I set, and Mom had learned that family doesn't mean dissolving your life to fix theirs. On Christmas Eve, Tyler sent me a text. Phone bill paid. First time on my own. Merry Christmas. My heart swelled. Not because of the money. It was because the lesson had stuck. Respect, responsibility, and self-worth were no longer abstract. They were real, living, breathing inside our home. I poured myself a final cup of tea that night, sipping slowly as the city lights outside blurred into soft pools of color. The apartment was quiet. No knocks, no demands, no crises, just the stillness of a life where boundaries and love coexisted, where teaching and protecting could be one and the same. And in that quiet, I realized something profound. Love without boundaries is chaos. Love with boundaries is power, stability, and liberation. Christmas morning arrived soft and gray. The city streets glistened with frost, and the air smelled faintly of pine and baked goods from neighborhood windows. I, Charlotte Brown, 32, sat by the window in my modest apartment, tea in hand, watching the first quiet bustle of the day. No chaos, no frantic calls, no text bombs, just quiet. A sharp contrast to every previous holiday where obligations and crises crowded the space I called home. Tyler texted again, this time with a green checkmark and a photo of his bus pass neatly tucked into his wallet. First week paid on my own. Thanks. I smiled, feeling a swell of pride and relief. Accountability was no longer an abstract concept for him. It had taken root. Later, Jenna came by, cautiously, her red eyes still betraying stress. She left the past's theatrics behind at the threshold, entering with quiet respect. I wanted to say thanks, she admitted, for the boundaries. It helped Tyler, and maybe me too. I nodded. Boundaries are not punishment, they're protection, for all of us. Mom called shortly after. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. You hurt your sister, she said gently, as if measuring every syllable. I stopped guaranteeing a loan I never should have signed, I explained calmly. I didn't hurt anyone. I protected myself, and in doing so, I helped Tyler learn responsibility. That's not cruelty, it's necessary. The air shifted in these conversations. No blame, no theatrics, just recognition that old dynamics could no longer control me. I had reclaimed my life, my name, my energy. Even in small, ordinary acts, the change was evident. Tyler made deposits on time, paid his bills, and smiled more genuinely. Jenna respected the lines I drew and began to interact without manipulation. Mom adjusted, sometimes tentatively, to a new equilibrium. By the time Christmas Eve rolled around, the apartment was quiet but full of presents. Tyler sent me a final text for the day. Phone bill, deposits, all done. Merry Christmas. Simple words, but heavy with triumph. Not the triumph of conquest or compliance, but the triumph of responsibility, trust, and respect earned the hard way. I placed the text beside the folder I had labeled Boundaries, a quiet archive of proof, lessons, and growth. I brewed myself a cup of tea, hands steady now, sipping slowly as the soft city lights blurred outside. No knock on the door interrupted me. No crises demanded attention. Only the calm hum of my own life, finally under my control. Love had remained throughout. Love for family, love for Tyler, love for myself, but now it existed alongside respect, accountability, and personal boundaries. I realized the profound truth. Love without boundaries is chaos. Love with boundaries is strength. Love with boundaries protects, teaches, and endures. I poured the last sip of tea, set the mug down, and let the quiet fill the apartment like sunlight through frost. The past's weight had lifted. The future felt clear, steady, and mine. I, Charlotte Brown, 32, had reclaimed my name, my life, and my peace. Boundaries weren't just lines on a contract or rules for others. They were my liberation. And for the first time in years, I slept knowing that what I signed, what I gave, and what I protected belonged only to me.